Most people stand in front of a pile of avocados and do one of three things. They squeeze every one like they're checking a stress ball, they grab the darkest one because it looks the ripest, or they trust the little sticker and hope for the best. Then they get home, cut into it, and find a gray, stringy, half-ripe mess, or worse, a brown, mushy one that should have been made into guacamole yesterday. And that is usually the moment the whole produce aisle starts to feel like a gamble. But it doesn't have to be that way. If a plain, practical farmer walked into that store, somebody used to reading food instead of marketing, they would not start with the sticker, and they would not start with the prettiest avocado in the bin. They would start by asking a simpler question. What am I actually buying here? Not an avocado in the abstract. Not a trendy ingredient. Not a photo for the kitchen counter. A piece of living produce at a certain stage, with a certain purpose, for a certain day. That shift changes everything. And when people say, pick an avocado like an Amish farmer would, what they usually mean, if they mean anything useful at all, is this. Stop shopping like a distracted consumer, and start choosing like somebody who respects food, hates waste, and trusts his own eyes and hands before he trusts a display. There is no mystical secret handshake here, just old practical judgment, the kind that used to be common. Because the truth is, the avocado itself is not confusing. What confuses people is the modern buying habit. Too much speed, too much packaging, too much faith in appearance. We have been trained to shop fast and regret it later. Farmers don't do that. Careful home cooks don't do that. People who have had to make every dollar and every meal count don't do that either. So in this video, I want to slow that moment down. I want to walk you right up to the avocado bin and show you how to read what is in front of you without guesswork, without bruising half the store's inventory, and without needing luck on your side. By the end of this, you should know how to pick one for tonight, one for 2 days from now, one for a bowl of slices, and one you should leave right where it is. And once you see it, you won't go back to buying avocados blindly. The first thing to understand is that most people look for ripeness before they look for soundness. That is backwards. Ripeness matters, but soundness comes first. If the avocado is damaged, badly bruised, split, or breaking down inside, then perfect ripeness on the outside means very little. That is like choosing a peach because it smells sweet when the side is already collapsing. So before you think soft or firm, look. Not a quick glance. A real look. Turn the avocado in your hand. The skin should make sense. That sounds simple, but it matters. You are not looking for cosmetic perfection. In fact, produce that looks a little natural often tells you more than produce that looks polished. You are looking for the difference between normal variation and trouble. A few rough patches on a Hass avocado are fine. Uneven texture can be fine. Slight color variation can be fine. But deep gouges, split skin, shiny wet spots, flattened sides, or areas that look caved in are warning signs. Those can mean impact damage, dehydration, or internal breakdown. This is one of the places people get fooled. They think ugly means bad and pretty means good. But with avocados, the real problem is not usually ugly. The real problem is injury. A scar can be harmless. A bruise is not. An avocado can look a little weathered and still eat beautifully. Another can look smooth and expensive and be turning to paste under the skin. So stop rewarding beauty. Start checking integrity. Now once the fruit passes the look test, then you move to feel. And this is where half the bad advice in the world starts. People are told to squeeze the avocado. Fine. But they are almost never told how. So they grab it with their fingertips, pinch the sides, and leave bruises behind for the next person. That is not testing ripeness. That is causing damage. The better way is to cradle it in the palm of your hand and apply the gentlest pressure with the whole hand, not the fingertips. You are not trying to force a response out of it, you are listening for one. If it feels hard as a stone, it is not ready yet. It may ripen at home, but not tonight. If it gives just slightly, evenly, with no sunken spots, that is often what you want for near use. If it feels loose inside the skin, overly soft, or soft in one place and hard in another, walk away. That unevenness is a big clue. Good ripening tends to happen with some consistency. Bad fruit often tells on itself through odd soft pockets, collapsed shoulders, or that faintly hollow feel of something losing structure. And here is a practical distinction that saves money. Soft does not automatically mean ripe. Sometimes soft means damaged. Sometimes it means old. Sometimes it means it sat too long in warm transit. Ripeness has a kind of quiet spring to it. Breakdown feels tired. If you've ever handled garden tomatoes, melons, or pears, you already know that difference. One feels alive and ready. The other feels like it has given up. That is the kind of judgment worth rebuilding. Now let's talk about color. Because color is useful, but only if you stop treating it like a final answer. With Hass avocados, which are the ones most people see, darker skin often does mean the fruit is farther along. But often is not always. That's the trap. People want one signal they can trust completely. Nature rarely works that way. Some Hass avocados stay greener longer than expected. Some darken before the inside is where you want it. Temperature, handling, and timing all affect what you're seeing. So yes, color can help you sort the pile quickly. A bright green hard avocado is probably less ripe than a nearly black one. That part is fair. But you still have to confirm with touch and shape. And if you are buying green skin varieties, color can mislead you even more. Those may stay green even when ripe. So if you have taught yourself that dark always means ready, you can miss perfectly good fruit or bring home something wrong for your purpose. This is why old practical knowledge usually depends on more than one sign. One sign can lie. 3 signs together tell the truth more often. So use color as a clue, not a ruler. The next thing most people overlook is weight. A good avocado often feels a little heavier than it looks. Not dramatically, just solid, present. Moisture and flesh still where they should be. When an avocado feels oddly light for its size, that can mean it has lost moisture, sat too long, or developed less flesh than you expected. Weight by itself is not enough to condemn a fruit, but paired with the other signs, it sharpens your read. Think of it this way. If 2 avocados look similar, and one feels fuller in the hand, more substantial, and also passes the gentle pressure test, that is often the better bet. A farmer notices little things like that because little things add up. Another useful check is the neck and shoulder area, the top end near the stem. Avocados often tell their story there first. If the top is shriveled, badly sunken, or unusually soft compared to the rest, that fruit may be farther gone inside than the bottom suggests. If the shoulders are plump and the fruit feels even, that is usually better news. This matters because avocados do not always ripen like a perfect clock. Sometimes the top breaks down before the rest catches up. That is why you cut one open and find the stem end brown while the lower half still seems acceptable. The fruit tried to move forward unevenly, and quality split right down the middle. So when you hold it, don't only think whole fruit. Read the zones. There is also the stem cap test, which people love because it feels like a secret. You pop off the little nub at the top and look underneath. If it's bright green, good sign. If it's brown, maybe too far gone. And yes, there is some usefulness there. But I want to say something plain. This test is not magic, and it should not be abused. If you quietly check one avocado you are seriously considering, fine. If you start stripping caps off 10 avocados in the bin like you are opening mail, that is bad manners and bad produce handling. Once that cap is removed, you've opened a doorway for drying and deterioration, so use that trick sparingly, and only as a tiebreaker. Besides, if you have already learned to read skin integrity, even softness, top-end condition, and weight, you should not need to lean too hard on the stem cap anyway. The point is to become less dependent on gimmicks, not more. Now here is where the whole thing gets easier. Stop asking, is this avocado ripe? And start asking, ripe for when and for what? That one change will spare you a lot of disappointment. If you need it for tonight, maybe for slices on supper or a salad, where shape matters, you want a fruit that yields slightly, but still holds itself together. Not hard, not mushy. Somewhere in that quiet middle where the knife will go through cleanly and the flesh will still make neat pieces. If you need it for guacamole tomorrow evening, you can buy a little firmer than people think, especially if your kitchen is warm. Avocados often move faster on the counter than folks expect. The one that feels just a touch too firm in the store may be perfect by tomorrow night. If you are shopping ahead for several days, do what careful people have always done with produce. Stagger the stages. Buy one nearly ready, one firm but promising, and maybe one clearly unripe if you know you'll want it later in the week. That way, one bad guess does not ruin your whole plan. This is how people waste less without making a big speech about waste. They think ahead one meal, one day, one bowl at a time. That practical rhythm is worth more than any store label that says ready to eat. Because ready to eat according to whom, in what temperature, under what handling, for what use? A store cannot answer that for your kitchen. Only you can. And that gets us to one of the biggest mistakes of all. People shop for avocados as if there were one ideal avocado. There isn't. There is only the right avocado for the job in front of you. The best avocado for slicing onto toast is not always the best avocado for mashing. The best one for tonight is not the best one for Saturday. The best one for a careful dinner may not be the same as the one for a big bowl, where texture can be a little softer and no one minds. Once you understand that, the produce aisle starts to feel less like roulette and more like selection. Now I want to deal with another modern habit that quietly ruins good judgment. People overhandle the fruit because they do not trust themselves. They keep checking, keep squeezing, keep second-guessing. By the time they choose, they have tested the life out of the thing. Confidence is gentle. When you know what you are looking for, you do less. You pick up the fruit once, maybe twice. You inspect it calmly. You feel for even give. You compare weight. You make your decision and move on. That may sound like a small thing, but it reflects a bigger truth. Competence usually looks quieter than confusion. That is part of what people admire in old growers, plain cooks, and practical households. Not mystery, economy. They do not waste motion. They do not perform expertise. They simply notice what matters. And that is exactly the kind of skill produce shopping can teach you if you let it. Now, if you bring home avocados that are too firm, don't fight them. Let them ripen properly. Set them on the counter out of direct sun. Give them a day or two. Check them once in a while with that same gentle palm pressure. Once they are where you want them, then you can slow things down by moving them to the refrigerator. What you don't want to do is buy badly and then blame storage for everything. Storage matters, yes, but a lot of avocado disappointment starts in the aisle. If the fruit was bruised, uneven, or over-mature when you bought it, your kitchen did not create that problem. It only revealed it. That's another old principle right there. Good handling can preserve quality. It cannot manufacture quality out of nothing. And while we're talking plain, let's say this too. Price does not rescue poor judgment. Organic sticker, premium display, upscale market, none of that exempts you from checking the fruit. People assume expensive means safer. Sometimes it only means better lighting and nicer signage. Food still has to be read. In fact, one of the smartest habits you can build is comparing avocados across stores over time. Not in an obsessive way, just paying attention. Which store turns inventory well? Which one keeps fruit too cold? Which one always seems to have either rocks or mush? Which one handles produce with some care? That kind of noticing is how ordinary shoppers become strong buyers. You stop being impressed by the display and start tracking results. And results are what matter, not theories, not trends. What happened when you cut it open? Creamy or stringy? Clean green flesh or browning around the veins? Even ripeness or strange patches? Pay attention to the pattern, and very soon you'll start picking better fruit with far less effort. That is how judgment is built in any practical area. You observe, you compare, you remember, you adjust. Not everything needs a guru. Some things need your full attention twice in a row. Now I know the phrase Amish farmer in a title catches something in people. It brings to mind restraint, practicality, fewer gadgets, less foolishness. And whether or not an Amish farmer spends his days studying avocados is not really the point. The useful part of the image is the attitude. Choose food the way a person would choose if waste cost him something, if quality mattered, if show meant less than use, and if his own senses were still his first tools. That attitude works in a garden, it works in a pantry, it works in a livestock barn, and yes, it works in the grocery store too. Because the larger lesson here is not only about avocados, it is about relearning how to buy food with your mind awake. We have become strangely willing to hand over judgment in the simplest places. A label tells us ripe, a color tells us ready, an app tells us when to eat something. Meanwhile, the fruit is sitting right there in our own hand, offering more honest information than all of it. That is not nostalgia talking. That is just reality. The old practical way is not old because it is quaint. It is old because it kept working. Look closely, touch carefully, compare more than one sign. Match the food to the use. Respect timing, avoid waste, trust the evidence in front of you. Simple, but not simplistic. And once you start doing this with avocados, you'll notice it spreading. You'll choose melons better. You'll stop buying tomatoes that only look good under store lights. You'll read onions for firmness, greens for life, potatoes for soundness. One good habit teaches another, because what you are really recovering is not a produce trick. You are recovering judgment. That may sound bigger than the subject deserves, but I don't think it is. A lot of self-reliance lives in very small moments, not dramatic moments, grocery moments, kitchen moments, countertop moments. The places where you either stay dependent on guesses and labels, or you quietly become someone who can tell. And there is a kind of satisfaction in that which is hard to explain to people who have never cared. You come home, cut the fruit, and there it is. Clean, rich, ready, exactly what you meant to buy. Not luck, not magic, just attention paying you back. That is a good feeling. So next time you're standing there with a dozen avocados in front of you, don't rush, don't poke everyone with your fingertips, and don't ask the pile for certainty it cannot give. Instead, read the fruit like a practical person. Check for damage first. Feel for even give. Use color as one clue, not the whole case. Notice weight. Watch the top end. Buy for the day and the purpose, and let a little patience do the rest. There is another mistake that catches people who are trying hard to do this right. They assume the perfect avocado should feel exactly the same from every angle. In real life, fruit grows under weather, transport, bins, and handling. Slight natural variation is normal. What you are trying to detect is not robotic uniformity. You are trying to detect trouble. A small difference in firmness from end to end may be harmless if the whole fruit still feels sound. A dramatic soft patch, though, especially one that feels almost bruised under the skin, is a different story. That often means impact. Somebody dropped it, stacked it badly, or handled it rough somewhere between grove and cart. Once you understand that, you stop rejecting every imperfect fruit and start rejecting the right ones. That distinction matters because people who are new to judging produce often swing from blind trust to fussy overcorrection. They become so afraid of choosing wrong that they rule out everything. The practical way is steadier than that. You are not hunting perfection. You are narrowing risk. And sometimes the smartest move is to not buy any avocados at all that day. That may sound obvious, but modern shopping trains us to complete the plan even when the ingredients are telling us not to. If every avocado in the bin is either hard enough to hammer nails or soft enough to spread with a spoon, don't force it. Change the meal. Wait 2 days. Buy something else. Good judgment includes the ability to walk away. Farmers know this. Gardeners know it too. There are days when the beans are not ready, days when the peaches are past it, days when the tomatoes need one more sun. Practical people do not throw a tantrum at reality. They adjust. That kind of flexibility saves more money than any coupon ever will. It also helps to remember that avocados keep ripening after harvest, but they do not improve forever. There is a window. Before that window, the flesh may be tight, rubbery, or watery. After that window, the oils can separate, the texture can go slack, and the clean, nutty richness starts fading into something tired. Your job in the store is not to find a mythical best avocado. It is to estimate where the fruit is in relation to that window, and then decide whether it matches your timing. That is why experienced shoppers often buy with the whole week in mind. They know dinner is not one isolated event. Life keeps coming. If tacos are Thursday, salad is Friday, and somebody in the house always wants toast on Saturday morning, then the best purchase is a little sequence of ripening, not a pile of identical fruit. One softer, one medium, one firm. That simple stagger can make you look like some kind of produce magician when really you just planned like an adult. And here is one more practical signal people do not talk about enough. Listen to your cutting results. The store teaches you 1/2 of avocado buying. Your kitchen teaches you the rest. If you keep getting fruit that looks fine outside but has stringiness inside, note the pattern. Sometimes that points to variety, season, or store handling. If you keep finding black spots concentrated near one side, think back to how the avocado felt in your hand. Was there a bruise you ignored? If the stem end was brown but the lower flesh was decent, did the top feel softer in the bin? Every avocado you open is feedback. That habit of closing the loop is where real confidence comes from. Otherwise, people stay trapped in a strange cycle. They buy. They hope. They are disappointed. Then they forget the details and repeat the same choice next week. No learning, no improvement, just a recurring little frustration that somehow never gets solved. But when you start noticing cause and effect, even casually, the improvement comes fast. In a month or two, your hands will recognize what your eyes used to miss. There is also value in understanding how your own house affects the clock. A cool kitchen buys you time. A hot kitchen shortens it. Fruit left in a paper bag with other ripening produce may move along faster. Fruit put in the refrigerator too early may never become what it could have been. None of that is complicated, but it means you are always buying in partnership with your home. The same avocado that is perfect for one family by Wednesday might be over the hill in another house by Tuesday night. That is another reason rigid rules fail people. Practical knowledge is specific. It pays attention to place. So if you want the shortest version of all this, it is not squeeze for softness and hope. It is read the fruit, read your timing, and read your own kitchen. Those three together will take you farther than any shortcut ever could. One last small thing. If an avocado rattles when you shake it gently, leave it there. Sometimes that looseness means the flesh has pulled away inside and quality is slipping. Not always, but often enough to respect. Good fruit tends to feel settled in itself. That sounds almost human, but it is useful. Food in good condition usually carries a certain steadiness under pressure. And maybe that is why this kind of knowledge still appeals to people. It returns a little dignity to everyday life. It reminds you that competence is not reserved for dramatic skills like building a barn or putting up a winter's worth of food. It also lives in smaller acts of discernment, in choosing well, wasting less, and trusting what your own senses can honestly tell you. That is a quiet kind of self-reliance, but it is real. If you already have your own avocado rule, the one sign you trust first, I'd be curious what it is. Some people swear by feel, some go by the stem, some shop by timing and counter-ripening more than by store softness. And if your family or your own kitchen taught you a different way of judging good produce, that is worth hearing too. Because the best part of practical knowledge is that it gets stronger when real people compare notes. And once you start looking at food this way, the store changes. It stops being a place where you hope. It becomes a place where you choose.